Well, good morning, YouTube. Not morning at all. It's like 3 in the afternoon. Just getting over here to the shop today to start on a couple of projects. On the way in, stopped by our local Family Dollar, picked up some snacks and drinks and stuff. Now that we're not traveling so much this winter, I'm going to be spending a lot of time over here. So we brought a fridge over a couple weeks back. Haven't plugged it in or nothing yet. And I really don't want to bring any cold goods over until I know for sure this fridge works. So I'm going to run a cord to plug it in, get it fired up. And I just brought some dry goods, snacks, drinks, bottled water, stuff like that, because I have nothing here. The main goal for today is a relatively simple one. As you guys know, I have many drums of used motor oil. A lot of it's stuff that we bring back from the rallies at the places where I don't have a way of disposing of it. I have excessive amounts at the moment. And unfortunately, where it's sitting right here in this corner is taking up space that I need to progress with the moving procedure. So I got to find another place to put these barrels. That way I can clear this corner. I can build more shelves over there, just like I did over here, so that most of this stuff here that hasn't even been unpacked from when we moved in 6-7 weeks ago, I got a place to put some of that stuff. But I got to get this out of the way. So where am I going to put it? Here's the plan. All right, so I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I was going to build a small shelter right over here that I can put those under so they don't get rained on, keep them dry, keep water from puddling on the top. And that's why I came and cut down all these trees that gave Talon and I some pretty good poison oak rash. And since we've done that, I've changed my mind twice. Luckily, the tree still needed to go no matter what. But I was going to build a wood structure here with a tin roof so I can put those barrels underneath. I think I had to think about it. Well, why am I going to spend money on wood? There's a little bit here, whatever. When I can just use these pallet racking frames. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just do that. That'll be faster. I just got to assemble them and then build a roof on them. Well, yesterday I was here kind of visiting with Talon and Zach while they were working on some projects, and you guys probably saw the shorts from those. I just got to looking at this area here. So that is a giant waste oil drum. I forget the size. I think it's 1,000 gallon, maybe 1,500. I honestly don't know. I looked at one point and now I just don't remember. But it's already under roof. It's already kind of in this contained area, but there's a lot of junk around it. And I'm thinking that if I clean all this junk out, I got room to put the barrels here. The challenge is this little concrete wall. But I'm thinking that with the tractor, if I put the barrels on a pallet, I can pick the pallet up, come over the wall, and I just might be able to set the pallet down on the other side of the wall to unload them. I won't be able to back the tractor back out, but I can at least get the barrel over the wall so that when I'm ready, I can pump the oil into the big waste oil thing. That way the pump on the wall can pump it to the oil heater, which I plan on putting inside. There is a waste oil burner in the building already. It's just not hooked up. It's sitting on the floor, back behind all those barrels. So that's the plan today, is to clean this up, get it ready for barrels. Now, I may have to fix the tractor before I can do this. When Talon and I were over here pulling trees, we broke the shifter, the forward to reverse shifter. So we can still get it in the forward and reverse. It's just not convenient. You got to reach way down underneath and yank a lever when you're supposed to just move a lever on the dash. So I may take that off, weld it back together, or find a way to repair it. And that's assuming I can get the tractor to even start, because the battery was dead on it yesterday. So I've had it charging all night. When I came in today, it said it was finished charging, but the bad battery light was on. So I turned it off, turned it back on. Sometimes you do it a couple of times. You'll desulfate those cells. Chances are it's going to need a new battery. The battery is the same battery that was in it when I brought the tractor home from New York. When I picked it up in New York 2 years ago, the battery was dead. We had to charge it for many hours to get it to start. And Gary said he'd never put a battery in it. It's the battery that was in the tractor when he got it, and he has had the tractor for, I think, 5 years before I got it. So who knows how old the battery actually is. I haven't looked to see if there's a date code on it. Maybe there is. But worst case scenario, I need to go buy another battery for it. But that's the plan today. Maybe fix the tractor, maybe clean this stuff up, maybe start moving some drums over. Oh, and put some snacks away. All right, with the fridge up and running, I'm gonna start by moving these cinder blocks out of the way. Now, there's a couple here you can see that are already cemented together. And down in here, there are some steps that are already cemented in. I'm assuming at one point these steps were on the outside. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try to pick them up, put them back on the outside. That way I don't have to try to climb over this wall all the time. I can just step up, step back down in. Once I got some of the branches down as well that are growing through the fence. All right, definitely a tough job. I know it's only 4 cinder blocks, but they're all cemented together and then they're poured solid. So to get it from down there, I had to roll it onto the first step, then roll it up onto the second step, then roll it up onto the wall. Now I gotta figure out how to get it down here without dropping it. I sure wish the tractor was already fixed, because then I could just put the forks under here, slide under the forks and lower it down. It looks like I'm gonna do it the hard way. All right, so instead of trying to bring it straight down, I decided to stack a couple blocks, use the same step method like I did there, roll it down onto one set of blocks, roll it down onto the next one, and then down on the ground. Then I should just be able to shimmy it back where I want it. That way I'm not actually supporting all of the weight at one time. All right, I've only been working for 5 minutes, but it's time to take a 5-minute break. It was a task. I managed to get it right back in its original spot. The contour of the concrete that's on the bottom of the blocks, plus the contour on the slab, I got it to nestle right back in like pieces to a puzzle. Pretty much perfect. All right, so I climbed in there and got rid of like this pallet, chunks of wood, some old car parts, some just bent pieces of steel, and these PVC pipes, which I think the pipes might be part of like how they filled that tank from out here or something. I'm not gonna get rid of them. I just wanted them out of here so I could clean up everything else in there. Probably just get in there with a shovel and scoop it out. But I've got these branches growing through the fence. I keep hitting my head on them, so I grab my little battery powered sawzall, reciprocating saw. We're gonna take care of those real quick. Yeah, I had to cut a couple of those, but some of the small stuff I can just kind of break off through here, and I'm not even really concerned about that right now. But this one back here is going to be a challenge because it's actually grown through and around the fence on both ends. So, I don't know. At the moment, it's not actually in my way. It's dead and rotting. It's been broken off for quite some time. I may not even mess with it, but then again, I might. You can see a lot of this has just grown up through this fence. These trees weren't supposed to be here. This was just nature taking over after the place got abandoned. Well, it is far from perfect, but it's perfect enough. It's gonna do. That was actually a much harder task than I expected it to be. Back in that corner, you could tell that oil had been spilled, and there was like a cardboard box that had been flattened out down there and saturated with oil, and then years of dirt and debris on it. And I literally had to scrape it off of the concrete base. And this concrete base is not a poured, smooth, nice. You can tell they did it themselves, and it wasn't meant to be pretty, so it's kind of rough. So even trying to scrape stuff, I kept hitting divots and high spots and lumps on top of the concrete, so it made it challenging. Again, it's not perfect, but we're just gonna store some oil drums out here. It's still exposed to the weather. It's gonna get dirty again. No, I don't think we're gonna start moving drums out because if you can see, the sun is, maybe you can see, the sun's going down right there. Well, when I started the clip, you can still see it. It's dropping below the mountain really fast. But I love the beautiful sunsets here. In fact, if you look back this way, the sun that's shining up on those mountains over there just makes it look absolutely beautiful with what's left of the fall colors. So I guess at this point, I'm gonna turn my focus to the tractor because I really want the tractor to do the next step. I can move all these drums over here without the tractor, but it would be a nightmare. I would have to do it the hard way. So my options are to put one drum on a hand truck, tote it through the shop, and go that way. up the stairs and around the corner. Or one hand truck at a time, out through the garage bay, all the way around the building, through the gravel and the grass, up the hill to the high side and back around. Would have to go up the stairs, would have to roll each barrel about 18 times as far. Or I could go home, grab a trailer, back the trailer to the door, load a bunch onto the trailer, and drive them around. But the easiest solution, I think, is still the tractor and the pallet. You can load them onto a pallet right here, take them over there, and hopefully set them on the inside of that wall, or at least as close as I possibly can. So let's see what we can do to fix the tractor. So the problem we're having with the tractor is it's a shuttle shift. This is the shuttle, that would be forward, that would be reverse, but as you see, it's just flopping. It's because the shaft on the other side is broken. So that shaft comes down to here, and it's supposed to connect to this. So this is that shaft up there. You see if I move that, I can get, oh, there you go. So I can get that to wiggle. But it sheared this shaft right off. Looks like right at the spot where a pin was supposed to go through. And I think maybe that pin was supposed to hold it up above this bracket right here. Because with it down here, you can see that when it turns, it hits these hydraulic lines. But all this does is just move this forward and backwards right there. So now I just gotta figure out what I can do to repair it. Most likely, I'll try to weld it back together. And just grabbing the shift lever and pulling it straight out, I was able to pull that right out. So I think now I just need to unbolt that piece right there. Just unclamp it, take that piece out. Maybe I can line them up properly, weld it back together. All right, with both pieces off and laying on the bench, luckily with the fracture mark, it's easy for me to see exactly how it went back together. Because if I flip it this way, it just doesn't match up the same, not even close. So this is definitely our way. Now, here's the trick. Well, two tricks actually. Once I'm finished repairing this, I have to still be able to slide it back in, and it's got to go through a couple different bushings on the way down. So my weld will have to be flush. I can't weld the outside of it, so I'm going to have to taper cut it, like basically bevel the two pieces, and then still try to keep it lined up, and then re-weld it. Then grind my welds down so that they do not protrude. Now the tricky part to that also is the hole that's in it. I think there was supposed to be a pin in it, which wasn't there, and that kept it up because there's a little bracket there. Kept it from sliding down and getting bound up. And I think that might have been part of the problem, is it was sliding down too far and then catching on things. So on top of having to have a small weld, I got to figure out how to weld it, because I did move my welder over here when we moved in. The problem is I do not have a 240 volt outlet to plug it into. I have a breaker box, and I think I have a breaker that will work. Can't see what amperage that is. All right, well, these were actually 30s, but I do have a 100 amp double pole breaker, and I've got a 60 amp breaker up there, and the 60 amp breaker will be fine for the welder. It's usually supposed to be done on a 50 amp, but I didn't get away with a 60. There might even be a 50 amp up there. My eyes aren't good enough to be able to read them in this terrible lighting, but I think there's one that looks a little bit smaller, so maybe 50 amp. But the lead, the cord, all that is still at the other shop. So I think I'm dead in the water with that one too. All right, well, it is now the next morning. After I realized I couldn't weld that, I just kind of tinkered with some other things around here until about 7, and then I went home and had some dinner. But this morning, I went and pulled that cord out of the old shop, and I brought it with me. So all you do is wire this in into that box, and then I'll have this like 20-foot extension cord. All right, so we got a 30 amp plug going through a 50 amp cord into a 60 amp breaker with zero strain relief whatsoever. It'll be fine. Probably. Now, without tugging on it too awfully much, I got it to reach out here to the main room. So it's probably actually a little bit more than 20 feet. The cord on the welder is pretty long. It should get me to reach the middle of the shop. I won't be able to reach everything, but for right now, I can bring whatever I need to weld into this area. And at some point, I will probably wire more outlets to where I can hook up the welder with more options. We have power. Now just gonna figure out what I'm gonna use over here as a welding table. I may just roll one of the motorcycle lifts over and do it on top of there. All right, so I got the lift moved over here where the welder can get to it, and I've marked which side of my piece is which side so that I don't get 180 degrees out. I'm gonna bevel the opposite side and at least tack weld it. That way I know the orientation is right. And then I will bevel this side and tack weld this side, and then I'll put a straight edge on it and try to weld it together, keep it as perfectly straight as possible. Okay, so I got it ground down a little bit. You can kind of see there's some bevel to it. Get a little bit better of a view there. Got the hole lined up as close as I can. Got a bevel on both sides. And I'm using this piece of angle bracket that I found laying around just to help kind of keep things square so that it doesn't get cockeyed one way or the other. All right, well, I've got a weld on it, but it's a little bit bulky, and it's actually very challenging to weld at that angle. So I'm taking it over the grinding wheel. I'm gonna try to clean it up, make sure I got good penetration on it, and if I need to, I'll do a little bit more. All right, so I hit it with the grinder, and I don't have it perfectly flush to the surface. I don't want to grind it absolutely, but I'm gonna go see if that fits. Now I did fill some of the hole with weld, so I took a drill bit and reamed it back out and then cleaned it all up with a wire brush. Even got all the rest of the rust off of this. Let's go test fit it, see if it works. And some good news, it didn't show bad battery this time. It shows fully charged and in float mode. Well, looks like I'm gonna need two hands to make this happen. And actually, before putting it all the way in, I went ahead and decided to spray it with some lubricant. I just used the Amsoil chain lube right here. It's gonna protect it from the weather and help lubricate it as I drop it in. I also found a washer and a cotter pin that will fit, actually a hitch pin technically, that will fit it so that once it's in there, I don't have to take it back out. Okay, so I got it slid down that way, but we're still catching on the steering wheel. And I got it out without taking the steering wheel off. I should be able to get it back in. And our rod is not quite lined up with our bracket, but it's close. But I gotta get the top first. Okay, I got the shaft to sit down in and go through both of the holes. I got the washers on there. Now my pin hole is a little bit low, so I gotta raise it up some and get my pin in, and then we can do the final hookup. All right, I'll bolt it back in, pins in, and it's got clearance down here. You can see where it was rubbing the line before. Not anymore. We just gotta hope that the weld was strong enough that it lasts for another 50 years. I don't know. All right, I'm gonna put these tools away, then I'm gonna go check all the fluids before I try firing it up, because it's been sitting here for a while and there are a couple of drips underneath it. So just wanna make sure everything's good. All right, all of the fluids look good despite the drips. So we're gonna see if we can get this to fire up and work. All right, been letting it run and warm up for a little bit. All seems good. Let's go see if we can move some oil drums. All right, so I went and picked up the pallet, brought it around to the bay. Now I'm just gonna see if I can get a couple drums loaded on there, and hopefully my idea works. Well, I got 4 drums on there. They don't quite fit on the pallet as good as I hoped they would, but I think I will run a strap around them just to be safe, and we'll try to wheel them over there. Guys, you can see I'm almost up to the wall, a little bit of clearance, and it looks like I'll be able to set it down a little bit, maybe more room than I thought I was going to have. As long as the boom or the loader doesn't hit the wall on the way down, we should be good. All right, success. See, I didn't have much more room here. I could have went the other way, but yeah, it didn't touch the wall. They're all on the ground. Now all you gotta do is unstrap them and feed them in. Well, I was honestly a little nervous that that wasn't gonna work, but man, that's probably the easiest way to move them over here. I mean, I still gotta manhandle them a little bit, but I'm not having to pick them up over anything. So much better. All right, I got those 4 in. You know, they took a little bit of muscling to get them back there. But once I got it angled right in this area, I actually leaned the drum against this wall. I was able to just roll it in there and then tip it down. I left myself enough room that I can still walk back here to get to the steps if I need to. Now, the only real issue I see coming is that this takes up a lot of room in here. And after I get the next load of drums in, it's going to be challenging to be able to set this down in here and still have a place to get the drums off. So my plan's not gonna work perfect, but I'll get what I can as easy as I can. All right, let's go for round 2. All right, and ready to unload round 2, but I figured something out. On the first trip, I drove the tractor in and then tried to make the turn and had to like weasel it back and forth a bunch of times to get the angle right. This time over there by the excursion, I pulled forward and I just backed it in and rounded it right back up to like this tire. And I was able to pull straight in and lower it down. It actually made it a whole lot easier. Had to go a little bit further in reverse, but it was a wide open area. It was pretty easy. All right, and on load number 3, I was able to get 2 of the drums off, but not enough room to get those last 2. So I've got a little bit of room between the loader frame and the wall. I'm going to try to back the tractor up just a little bit. If I have to, maybe I'll raise the loader and then tilt down a little bit. Maybe it'll give me just enough room to get those 2 off. All right, that didn't give me a lot of room, but it might be just enough to get those 2 drums off of there. All right, guys, so I goofed on this one. I lost my grip on it and laid it down, and it slid forward this way when it did. So now, because the base of the drum is up against the other drums, I can't pick it up because it keeps hitting those drums. So I need to slide it back. So I'm going to try to, I tied it to the forks so that when I pull the tractor back and lift up on the forks, it'll bring it with me, then I can mostly stand up with the tractor, just come back down, unhook the strap, set it back down in. Hopefully that works. And that was the fail. Well, unfortunately, the second I started to move, the drum rolled, which unhooked my strap, but at least it's not wedged in there. I should be able to stand it up still. All right, problem solved. No biggie. All right. The other ones are gonna be a little challenging getting here. What I may do is just bring the forks in high and stack more on top of these. Leave this area here kind of open. That would get to my pump and stuff like that. All right, trip number 4. You picking up what I'm laying down, leaving it up in the air. I can stand on these barrels, maybe just shimmy them over on top. Hopefully that'll work. Well, definitely a task getting them from there to there, because they don't slide very well on top of other barrels, and I can't roll them like I do on the ground. But I got them. I think we've only got a couple more left to do, but I think I now want to move these over this way just to keep my walkway clear. All right, there is the last delivery. See, this one got a little bit boogered up because it fell off of the pallet. And I do have to say that the plastic pallet was actually pretty nice to have, because once I rolled the barrel to the pallet and I kind of pushed it on there, I could pretty much slide the barrels around on the pallet. Where on a wooden pallet, they wouldn't have slid so good, and you got all the spots between the slats where the barrel catches up. So this worked really, really well. And it's a good thing I had the strap on it. On the very last one, I just had these 2 barrels that were actually in a different spot in the shop. And with only 2 of them on there, I'm like, yeah, I can get away without the strap. And actually, I was going to strap it, but I had set the pallet down on the strap, so I couldn't get the strap without whatever. So I said, you know, I'll try it. I got 20 feet. And the driveway over here is cattywampus, and the tractor was just slightly crooked. And because they slide so well in the plastic, that one slid off and fell on the ground. I was only about a foot off the ground, but it was enough to damage the barrel. No leaks though. We'll send it. But I think I'm going to keep this pallet because it's coming in really handy for this. But I think I'm going to store it out here just on top of all these drums, so that's here next time I need it. Well, I was wrong. I did get a little leak right there. No biggie. It's above the level in here, so we're going to let it roll. All right, so as you can see, now this corner is relatively clear. Now, this drum is not all the way full. This drum is not all the way full. And this one is completely empty. So I didn't want to stack them out there. What I may end up doing is combining these 2. I've got a third one on the other side of the shop that is also only partially full. I just got to find my transfer pump that I use. And then I'll probably take one of these, and whichever one's full, and put it out there. I'm going to get a completely different spot to put the empties, because I use them as trash cans and burn barrels. In fact, I got these trash can lids here that fit the barrels just perfect. So I'll cut the tops out of them, go buy some bags for them, and then we'll have garbage cans. And then I got to keep one drum in here someplace for me to dump waste oil in as I'm servicing vehicles in here. I don't want to have to run out there every single time. I would just do it in here, and when it's full, I can take it out there. And once I get the oil burner system done, hopefully all that will get pumped in there, and we'll start minimizing all those barrels out there depending on how much fuel oil will actually burn over the winter. Now we can actually get to that furnace. I'm going to move it to a more optimal spot so I can clean out this corner. And in one of the upcoming videos, we're going to have to figure out exactly how this thing works and find out whether it works. So I snuck the tractor into the building. That way I can try to pick up the furnace and move it out of this corner and put it up on one of the motorcycle lifts. That way I can actually work on it. The problem is with these forks and the tractor being so long is I can't always see the tip of my fork from the driver's seat. And even looking out around, as you can see, I was having trouble finding it. I'm almost there, not quite. Of course, I'm trying to avoid running over all the other crap I got in here. All right, looks like I got it. Oh, my cord caught up on here. Probably noticed that there's a toilet sitting on top of it, and that was just sitting in here when we took over the place. I was trying to keep it up there so I could just come dump the toilet into the trash, but it fell over when I came through the ditch because the tractor teetered. But anyway, got it this far, and I just gotta knock it off. All right, now we'll take this back in through the side door and put it on the motorcycle lift that I moved on earlier to weld the repair piece. All right, guys, there it is up on the table, at least now. Maybe I can work on it. It's fairly stable up there. I want to check wiring. There's a lot of stuff that's cut. I'm probably going to call the manufacturer, see if I can get a manual on this somehow. Like I said, here, there's like a control box that looks like it's broken open, but all the wires look intact. So I don't know. I'm hoping we can make this thing work because it'd be really nice to have some heat in here this winter. All right, well, some hours have passed and I've cut some lumber and made some shelves here, put an end cap on. Actually quite challenging. A lot of this wood is repurposed and it's got some like cupping to it, a little bit of bowing. I've actually had to use ratchet straps to try to straighten it out and screw it in as I go. And some stuff still just doesn't line up perfect, but it does good enough for what I needed to do. I didn't go all the way to the garage door simply because these boards weren't long enough. And I can always extend with shorter ones if I need to, but for right now, that's what I'm gonna do. And these are kind of shallow shelves. And the reason for them is mostly because I've got a lot of little storage containers that I use. Simple things like this that are like from nuts or whatever. And I keep stuff in them to be organized. And things like that fit perfect on these shelves. And they don't take up a lot of space. I also found this frame for what looks to be a good desk or a workshop table. It was actually in the bed of the Dodge. Well, you can't barely see the Dodge out there, but it's out there. So yeah, when we picked up the Dodge 2500 a couple weeks ago, this was in the bed of it. So I think I'm gonna take some of the plywood and I'm gonna build a plywood top for it. And this will make a nice little workstation right here. All right, so 2 more pieces and I'm gonna put them as a shelf right here. And 1 more right there above that workstation. And guys, I'm not even precision cutting this stuff. I'm just trying to cut the rot off of the end. So I'm doing like, just put my square there and I'm cutting. I don't care how long it is. So just getting those rotty little pieces off, go throw them in the burn barrel. All right, threw a couple more shelves up over there. And now I'm working on the plywood for the top. Now this plywood is a piece of junk. You can see it's actually broken in the middle. So when you pick it up, it like flexes. It's chewed up on the ends, busted up here. So I just kind of centered this. I clamped it and I'm actually going to use the rail from the bench itself as the guide and just saw around it. I don't know if you caught it, but when I got to that point where I found the break in it, you see it just folds. And the whole thing is broken like that. But with the frame underneath it, it should be fine for a tabletop. Probably. And into the burn barrel go the scraps. Unfortunately, I don't have any screws here, I think, that will work well to bolt that top on. All right, there we go. Shelves, worktop table. I did find a couple of self-drilling screws I put in here, countersunk them. That should do it. Now I'm gonna take a 5-minute break, and then I may start stocking those shelves with stuff, help clean up this mess a little bit. All right, guys, it has been a good minute, or a matter of hours, since I've recorded. But I got in the zone, got the music cranked up. I cleaned up all those benches over there, stuff that we just kind of been throwing there and not really knowing where it's going. With the shelves being built and the tabletop done, I started sorting and organizing a bunch of this stuff. I still got like a pile of stuff here I've got to kind of sort through. Nuts and bolts that I usually sort out and put into these bins. Swept the floors. I've still got a couple of boxes here. The only reason I did not get this stuff put away, because it is almost all stuff that gets hung on pegboard. But look, I hung the pegboard. I even hung another piece over there, put my NGK box up. But unfortunately, these are the only pegboard hooks I have at the moment. So I can't really organize all of this just yet. But yeah, I got in the zone. And about 11:15, Katie called me and said, hey, you didn't come home for dinner, so I didn't make any dinner. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. And she said, are you almost done? I said, yeah, I think so. But I wasn't. She called me again at like 1:15, 2 hours later. She's like, are you still there? Are you still in the zone? I'm like, yeah, I'm making progress. I want to just keep going. And she's like, well, we got appointments at 9:30 in the morning. So you might want to come home soon so we can get some sleep. Like, she's probably right. Yeah, so she was on me to get home. She's like, you haven't had any dinner. You haven't had anything to eat. Little does she know, I was here with my mistress, little Debbie. So I've had snacks, just not a real meal. I think I might eat one more before I head home, but I think I'm done. It's now 20 after 2 a.m. Just like I said, I got in the zone. I had to do it. There's still so much more to do, but I'm happy that that part is done. Now this pile here is mostly just scrap metal stuff, things that I can't burn. But I will tell you what, I had that burn barrel going really, really good. I probably filled that thing 20 times and let it burn down. Anyway, guys, I don't know what else to say here at this point other than good night. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Remember to check out the TikTok, links in the description. I guess Talon has also been working on a Snapchat thing for me too. I don't understand Snapchat at all, but there's going to be links there too. He hasn't given it to me yet, but he's going to give it to me. And remember, we also have an Instagram. We've got a Facebook. All those links are in the description. So you want to follow all that stuff. Try to make this social media conglomerate thing work. I don't know. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. And until next time I see you, keep those engines running. I'm really disappointed. Looks like one of my brand new lights I just put in back in March is out. That sucks when you consider that wasn't even here most of the summer. These have hardly been used at all. Oh, and I almost forgot. I hung up my air hose reel. So if you watched this far into the video, comment hose reel in the comments.